The world of Subnautica is in some ways certainly mysterious, often prompting players to come up with their own theories about how everything works, or about what else might be lurking in the darkness out there. Today, we'll be taking a look at quite a few of these, with the help of Reddit user ImmortalGodWizard, who created the Subnautica Iceberg and posted it into the r/Subnautica subreddit. If you haven't heard of these before, the way they work is that the deeper down you go, the crazier the theories/conspiracies get, from the top all the way down to the dark abyss. Additionally, as is common with these, I'll be adding a little oxygen meter at the bottom of the screen to show how confident I am about the individual entries, so if it is almost empty, I most likely have no clue. But with that out of the way, why don't we just take it from the top, starting with the sky above the iceberg. The Degassi was a ship which arrived to planet 4546b before the Aurora, and its crew is responsible for building the 3 abandoned bases we can find throughout the game. These have been vacant for about a decade now, so you can certainly see nature taking them back over. Certainly a useful place to find new blueprints. Alien vents are places where the huge system of pipes from the central containment facility meet the seabed and exit into the ocean. The original purpose of these was to provide fresh water for the Emperor trapped below, but they are also used by peepers now to transfer the incomplete Enzyme 42 around the crater. In Subnautica, you can find 2 islands which you're able to get to and explore. Since the surface of 4546b is mostly flat, due to it being all water, without major objects to block the player's view, fog and clouds are used to hide the 2 islands until the player is relatively close to them. It is certainly a strange phenomenon, but it seemingly only exists for progression purposes. Remains of multiple Reaper Leviathans can be found around the lava zone in the form of incomplete skeletons and skulls. When alive, these were dragged down here by sea dragons and killed/consumed in the boiling water. Interestingly enough, according to the PDA, most of these are only a couple months old, so we're looking at relatively fresh kills. As for most creatures in the game, cuttlefish hatch from eggs the player can find throughout the game. Naturally, given that the cuttlefish is a very unique creature, the number of eggs the player can actually find is limited to 5. These eggs certainly stand out from the rest, given their unique appearance, which actually shows an embryo version of the creature on the inside. Alright, moving on to the second layer, the Iceberg Surface section. The Quarantine Enforcement Platform, or QEP, is a giant alien weapon on 4546b which is responsible for shooting down any vessel that approaches the planet, including the Aurora as well as Sunbeam, a small trading vessel which comes to your rescue during the game after receiving the Aurora's emergency broadcast signal, only to meet its unfortunate end and get destroyed. Now, as a part of the main story, you have to disable the QEP in order to leave the planet. However, using some nifty console commands or just being really fast, you can actually disable the QEP before Sunbeam arrives to the planet. If you manage this, a unique voice line will play as a message from Sunbeam, informing you that they can't land anyway due to a massive debris field orbiting the planet. I think this is a very cool touch from the developers, given that most players will never get to hear this line. Natural Selection 2 was a game made by Unknown Worlds Entertainment before Subnautica, and these 2 take place in the same universe. This can be seen through many ways, including Kara and Altera existing in both games. Not much more to add here. There is a popular theory that outside of the playable area of Subnautica, in the so-called ecological dead zone, or simply the void, there exists a large unidentified leviathan that dwarfs everything else we can find in the game. I have a full video exploring this theory on the channel if you're interested. just click on the eye icon in the top right of the video. I'm honestly not sure what this is supposed to mean. There is a limited number of reapers, dragons, and ghosts in the map if we don't count the crater edge, all with predefined spawn points. You can even find online maps which have these marked, but as far as I know, that's about it. So back in the day, before the Little Big update, there used to be an actual bottom in the ecological dead zone at around 3,000 meters deep. This was a flat area covering about 4 kilometers squared, with bits and pieces of unfinished geometry dotting the surface. This bottom has since been removed and the crater edge turned into much more of a sheer drop. You can still technically find some small bits of strange geometry at the bottom of it, but nothing major. And that's all for the crater surface. Now it's time to dive underwater. I'm not too sure about this one, but in the game you have the option to take screenshots at any time by pressing F11. This will add a photo to your PDA gallery, which you can later view or place into a picture frame. By taking a photo of yourself holding the PDA and repeating the process while always displaying the previous photo, you can get a infinite picture effect, which somewhat resembles a fractal, I guess. In the original version of Subnautica, several biomes were conceptualized but ended up never making it in due to budget and scope. An Arctic biome was one of those scrapped locations, but luckily, it was later realized to the fullest in Below Zero. In Subnautica's lore, there are several references to Mongolian corporations and potentially even full trans governments, so seemingly, in this universe, Mongolia came to be one of Earth's most advanced nations. As an example of this, the Gassi was a Mongolian vessel, and even the Aurora happened to be carrying a Mongolian emissary, Joki Kesar. There is an Easter egg hidden in the soundtrack for the Sparus Reef in Subnautica. If you listen closely at 1 minute 18 seconds, you can hear Donald Trump saying China in a heavily distorted way. In the past, the sea dragon used to be able to attack the sea moth and would presumably even have a few unique animations to go with it. However, given that the sea moth can't ever go that deep in survival, these animations were scrapped. I don't believe it is known how these would have looked like if they were implemented. The scanner room in Subnautica allows the player to scan for various resources around their base and even utilize small camera drones to survey the area. If the player installs a window onto this room and takes the camera drone to it, they can see themselves in third person. This is also the easiest way to see the player model in the base game. And that covers the shallow water part. Time to start diving deeper into the middle of the iceberg. If you decide to swim down into the void in Subnautica, or perhaps drop with your prawn suit, the deepest possible point you can reach is 8,192 meters, at which point you'll be teleported back onto the surface. You can technically use the freecam command to look deeper, but there is nothing to be found there. In Subnautica, you possess the Habitat Builder tool, which allows you to construct a plethora of structures, ranging from sea bases to pots for plants. These can usually be placed in most places around the world, with a few exceptions, such as the Precursor bases or the Aurora ship. There is no way to build base compartments inside the Aurora. However, back when the Terraformer tool was still in the game, during early access days, you could technically build your way up onto the Aurora and build a base there. Within the old concept art for Subnautica, we can find an image depicting a single-cell biome, which never came to be implemented into the game. This biome would, as the name suggests, consist of a single living organism with many smaller tentacles that the player would have to navigate in the dark. Sandy Hook was a terribly tragic school shooting which occurred in Newton, Connecticut on December 14, 2012. This was right around the time when the Unknown Worlds team was finishing Natural Selection 2, the game they made before Subnautica, which was certainly very gun heavy. This tragedy was, according to them, one of the reasons the player doesn't have any other weapons besides the knife in Subnautica. When entering the Cyclops submarine, the vehicle's AI always greets the player with a voice line, which always says,
"Welcome aboard, Captain. All systems online."
There is, however, a very small chance for this voice lines to instead be,
"You are the best captain on the planet. I'm not even squidding."
with squidding being a play on the word kidding. Reefbacks are a Leviathan-class creature found throughout several biomes in Subnautica. Iconic given their noises and appearance, reefbacks often carry small microbiomes on their backs, complete with plants, coral, and schools of fish. Given their rather large size, a popular theory was created which states that the entire crater the player finds themselves in during the game is actually located on the back of a giant reefback. I have covered this theory in a video before, but it is in most likelihood false, especially given that even if we dive to the bottom of the map, we can't find the aforementioned reefback. And that wraps up that area. Time to move even deeper, the lower section of the iceberg. The observatory is a round glass base part the player can build in the game. Now within the game's code, the observatory is actually registered as a separate biome, which can be seen mostly in the void where the ghost leviathans will actually stop attacking you if you enter the observatory, seeing as how you are no longer in the void. Not much more to say here. The Sea Emperor's Aquarium is an endgame location within the primary containment facility, which houses the last remaining Sea Emperor. This location is naturally all the way at the very bottom of the game, in some places exceeding the depth of 1600 meters, and yet, even if you take an unupgraded Seamoth in there, it will not get crushed. This is presumably because it is a completely separate body of water inside the facility. Originally, Subnautica was actually conceived to be a co-op experience, but this was later removed due to time and budget. Over time, many threads popped up with people asking the devs for a multiplayer mode, but the answer was always the same: impossible to do with proper balancing because of how long such a rework would take. As of today, Subnautica never received an official multiplayer mode. However, if you still want to have the multiplayer experience, I recommend downloading the community-created Nitrox mod, which actually achieves exactly that. There is a not so well known mechanic associated with the in-game creature called Stalker, which can be found mostly in starting areas around kelp forests. Even though they are by default hostile, the player can temporarily pacify them by feeding them any catchable fish. This state unfortunately won't last and is only useful as a temporary measure to stop them from attacking. Honestly, not sure what this one is referring to. We've already discussed the cut Arctic biome, so I don't really know what to add here. It is thought that one of the main reasons it was cut originally is because it didn't fit with the tropical feel of Subnautica, but I don't think that was ever confirmed. The Terraformer tool was during the early access days a piece of equipment the player could craft and wield, which allowed them to take away pieces of geometry and place them elsewhere. Kinda like Minecraft, just with more polygons. This tool was unfortunately quite game-breaking, both in terms of progression and performance, so it was later removed from the game prior to release. The biome Aurora can be found in is most often referred to as the crash zone, for obvious reasons. However, what said biome was like before the ship's unfortunate landing has been the topic of many discussions. You can catch a few glimpses of it in the cinematic trailer, but what actually lies under the ship has never been confirmed. I have a full video discussing this topic in depth on the channel if you're interested. And with that, we continue ever deeper. It's time for the final piece of the iceberg before we delve into the abyss. Warpers are biomechanical creatures constructed by the precursors to help eliminate/reduce Kara on the planet. In-game, they communicate using a unique and somewhat gargled language, parts of which the PDA is able to translate. There are a few sections which never got translated though, so there isn't any way to know what these things are saying to be exact. During concepting, several possible designs for the Cyclops submarine were created before the one seen in the game was settled on. Some of these certainly look quite funky, but there isn't much more to say here. Again, not much to be said here. The community has at several points mentioned how cool it would be to have a map editor which allows players to further alter their worlds, but as far as I know, this was never planned by the devs. During the game, your PDA will often give you voice messages about your progress, environment, or status using a female voice with some electronic overlays. The origins of this voice have been debated quite a bit, with one person even mentioning that it sounds suspiciously like the announcer at Heathrow Airport of all things. Curiously enough, the IMDb cast page doesn't actually list any voice actor for the PDA voice, so I suppose we can't be sure who it actually belongs to. I'm not too sure about this one. In the game, there is a small chance that Reapers might glitch themselves into the safe shallows, or in some cases, even just follow you there, but they are not supposed to spawn or exist in there by design. Upon entering the Blood Kelp Zone Trench, the PDA will state,
"This ecological biome matches 7 of the 9 preconditions for stimulating terror in humans."
These preconditions have been debated in the community quite a bit, with most people pointing to things such as disorientation, lack of light, or scary creatures, but since the PDA never lists these, we can only speculate. And with that, we're finally leaving the iceberg and delving into the deep, dark depths. Crashfish are certainly an annoying creature to come across due to their proclivity to explode upon getting close to you. Some players have however started using this in combination with the propulsion cannon to grab onto them and shoot them into leviathans to deal some serious damage. The strategy is certainly nice, but can be somewhat tricky to pull off. A phylogenetic tree is a branching diagram showing evolutionary relationships between different species. Now on planet 4546b, we know that many creatures shared common ancestors, or evolved alongside one another, and so several players have attempted to construct a full branching tree like this, showcasing how everything in the game is related, and I gotta say, some of these are quite impressive. To quote directly from the wiki, most known fauna species on planet 4546b are simultaneous hermaphrodites, meaning that they have a single cell capable of playing to the role of either male or female in reproduction, and every individual being able to lay eggs and fertilize them. So technically yes, most of the fauna is one sex, however, we do know that it's not all of it, especially with some revelations from below zero. The prawn suit is certainly a handy tool for the player when it comes to navigating the deepest parts of Subnautica, coming in with good protection and cool design. Some people in the community, however, have taken this design a bit too far in theorizing that it comes from District 9, a 2009 action film, since it somewhat resembles the biosuit that is in the movie being used by, you guessed it, prawns, the strange aliens. We do know that Unknown Worlds devs often get inspired by outside media when designing Subnautica, so I suppose the connection isn't impossible, but I don't believe it has ever been confirmed. I'm not really sure what this one is trying to say. Time capsules are curious containers in the world of Subnautica, which are left behind by other players after escaping in the Neptune rocket. The contents of these would then be voted on by the community, and the best ones would start appearing in people's games. There isn't much more to this, or at least, if there is some conspiracy, I'm not aware of it. And with that, we finally entered the Dark Abyss, the deepest point of this list with the most cursed entries. The Precursors are one of the original Subnautica's largest mysteries. A race of spacefaring aliens which constructed these strange bases around 45-46b in their pursuit of curing Kara. However, despite how big their presence is, we never actually get to see one alive. This theory states that there are actual models for these things hidden somewhere in the game's files, which just never get loaded. But over the years of modders exploring them, we can now be pretty sure that they never really existed. Over the years, many members of the community have expressed how awesome it would be for Subnautica to have a procedurally generated world, where every playthrough is slightly different, kinda like Minecraft. While this certainly sounds awesome, the game was never designed around this, and as far as we know, this feature is not being worked on or planned for any time in the future. The Peeper is perhaps the most iconic creature in Subnautica, with its unique and somewhat cute appearance, so it is no wonder that one of these theories is about it. Peeper Leviathan is a play on Reaper Leviathan, suggesting that somewhere out there, in the Dark Abyss, there exists a Leviathan variant of the Peeper. Now, curiously enough, a creature called Alpha Peeper is mentioned in the game when describing the Peeper's evolutionary tree, but there is nothing in the game to suggest that it would be Leviathan-sized, so for now, this will only remain a small joke. There is a glitch in Subnautica, which can be triggered in several different ways that effectively disables the effects of water on the player, allowing them to just freely walk along the seabed. This last entry suggests the idea of completing the whole game without water, or by extension, swimming. If you're curious about whether this is actually possible, I will be trying my hand at it relatively soon here on the channel, so make sure you stick around to see if I can manage. But with that, we have reached the end of Subnautica's Iceberg. Thank you very much, ImmortalGodWizard, for making it, and thank you to all of you for watching. I certainly hope you enjoyed. Again, with some of the things on the list, I wasn't exactly sure what they were about, so if you have some more information, or you simply know or have experience, please make sure to leave that all down in the comments below. I would very much like to read it. But with that, I'm gonna wish you all a beautiful rest of the day, and I'll see you in whatever next video I make. Bye bye.